Derita, derita, derita. Stop, stop, stop. Okay, okay. Up, 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 up. No remove. Asparagus.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Stephanie and welcome back to my channel. So in the video today, I will be discussing some reasons why I got rejected by so many schools, PA schools, the first time I applied to PA school. So for those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. I am a second year PA student. I'm currently in my clinical rotations and I have about one more year before I graduate PA school. Now, applying to PA school, it was definitely a journey. I applied twice. The first time I applied, I was rejected by all the schools I applied to. I did get waitlisted, but was finally rejected. The second time I applied to PA school, I was given a lot of interview invitations and I was also accepted into my number one choice. So this is the reason why I wanted to make this video. For those of you who are interested in PA school or applying to PA school or are reapplicants to PA school, hopefully this video is helpful for you guys so you guys know what mistakes I made and basically what mistakes you want to prevent when applying to PA school. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first time I applied, like I said, I applied to 9 school. I was waitlisted from one of the schools and then was eventually rejected. Interviewed at some schools and was also rejected. And I can say this can be due to a lot of mistakes that I did applying the first year. Now, the second year that I applied, I learned from these mistakes and I made sure that I did not repeat these mistakes the second time I applied to PA school. So primarily, the CASPA application. So what is a CASPA application? The CASPA application is an application center for the nationwide, US, and it's an application center for a lot of PA schools. Now I have to say that I think there's very rare PA schools that do not accept their applications from CASPA, but the majority of PA schools, if not all of them, do get their applications from CASPA. So you go onto CASPA, you create a profile, and you input all your information, your demographics. This is where the individuals who are going to write you letters of recommendation send their letters of recommendation to. And also when you submit it, you get to choose the schools that you want to apply to. So one of the things that's really important when it comes down to your CASPA application is that you want to make sure your CASPA application is pristine. You want to make sure all the information is accurate and you want to make sure you do not lie on your CASPA application. This is very, very important when it comes down to your hours, whether it's volunteer hours, patient care experience hours, or healthcare experience hours. You do not want to lie. It's really important to keep track of how many hours you're doing in your healthcare experience hours and your patient care experience hours, whether you're volunteering, and also you want to keep track of the types. So for example, if you volunteered in multiple places, whether it is the Humane Society or it's at a hospital, you want to make sure that you keep track of these hours and also the dates, because the CASPA application will ask you for the dates and will ask you for the type of community service that you did, and would also ask you for a description of the community service you did. And it's really important that you're very accurate and you're also very precise and you provide information, good information describing what you did during your community service, whether it's multiple ones. It's really important. I felt like when I applied to PA school the first time, I was very vague because I didn't know how to fill out these portions or how much information they wanted. So it's really important to be precise and concise and make sure that you hit the main points of what you did during each community event that you went to or each volunteer thing that you did. The same thing can be said for your patient care experience and your healthcare experience hours. Now, another thing you also have to do is that you want to make sure that you research the schools that you're applying to, and you want to also contact them if they don't have it listed on their website. You want to make sure what they consider patient care experience hours and what they consider healthcare experience hours. I know most schools tend to usually have the same definition for both, but some schools will accept certain things as patient care experience hours, and then some schools will accept certain things as healthcare experience hours. An example is a scribe, a medical scribe. So a medical scribe, individuals who follow doctors, providers, and are just scribing for them. Now, some schools will usually accept this as healthcare experience hours, and then some schools will accept this as patient care experience hours. So that's why it's really important that you also research the school you're applying to. You make sure that you see what they accept as medical or patient care or healthcare experience hours. And usually they have it listed on there. They'll put examples of what they accept and what they don't accept. Like some schools also, medical assistant, they won't accept it as patient care experience hours. So when I was researching schools, this was one of the things that I looked into, and if they did not accept it, then I didn't apply to them because medical assistant was my patient care experience hours. So that's why it's really important that you research the schools also. So researching the school is my next point. You want to make sure that you research the school because the school will also tell you the minimum amount of patient care experience hours or healthcare experience hours that they require. So this is really, really important. The first time I applied to PA school, I had zero patient care experience hours. And I was applying to programs that I did not research that required, for example, a minimum of 1,000 hours for patient care experience or a minimum of 500 hours of patient care experience. So I had zero. So this was definitely something that went in, that also affected my application the first time I applied to PA school, is that the fact that I had zero patient care experience hours. I had a lot of healthcare experience hours. I had about 14,000 healthcare experience hours, but I had zero patient care experience hours. So that's why it's really important to research the schools that you are applying to. Also, when it comes down to CASPA and you're inputting your information for your patient and healthcare experience hours, it also will ask you a description of what you did in your patient care or healthcare experience hours. So you want to make sure that you are very thorough and specific. For example, in medical assistant for patient care experience hours, I made sure that I input that I took vital signs, that I did injections, I assisted the RNs, etc., the doctors, the providers in certain medical procedures. So you want to make sure that you're very, very specific. Now for my healthcare experience hours, I worked as a registrar in the ER, in the hospital. So it was not touching patients physically, but I did work alongside doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs, and I did work very closely with patients. So I made sure that I also input this on the information that asks you of the type of healthcare experience hours that you had. So that's why it's really important to be precise and provide good information to describe your title or what you did. Also, another thing that came into play was definitely my GRE score. The first year that I applied, my GRE score overall was less than 300. So that was not very competitive. I applied to schools that had a limit or what they considered a competitive GRE score, and my GRE score was nowhere near that. So once again, it's really important that you research your schools. But what did I do differently the second time that I applied to PA school? I made sure I retook the GRE, and then I made sure I scored better, and I researched the schools that had a set value or score for their GRE that they required. So if I did not meet that standards, then I did not apply to that PA school. Also, another thing is that I applied to several schools that did not require the GRE. So when you are applying to PA schools, there are certain programs that do not require the GRE, so you don't have to submit your GRE score. So if your GRE score is not competitive, then I would definitely look into applying to these programs that do not require the GRE score. So that was another thing that I did the second year I applied. Also, since I had zero patient care experience hours, I made sure that the second year I applied, I gained those patient care experience hours. So I was cross-trained as a medical assistant, and I worked a lot for that year. And I was able to make up the 1,000 hours that most of the schools required as your minimum patient care experience hours required. So this is another difference that I did in regards to my first application to my second application. Another thing that I did is that my letters of recommendation, I changed them. The first year I applied, my letters of recommendation were written by individuals that were not very close to me or who did not know my work ethic or how much I wanted to become a PA. I was just basically choosing individuals because I was wanting to submit my application as soon as possible, and that's definitely a no-no. You want to make sure your application is complete, it is precise, and it is pristine before you submit it. You want to make sure everything is perfect. Even if you had to submit it a little bit later than you wanted to, than anticipated, you want to make sure that you submit it pristine and that you have those letters of recommendation and they're strong, all three of them, from people that you know can talk about your work ethic, can talk about your personality, your school, etc. You want to make sure it is people that know you well because they will write really good recommendation letters about you. So that's another thing that I did. is that I changed my letters of recommendation the second time I applied to PA school. Also, submitting your application. You want to make sure you submit it as soon as you can. Preferably before, I would say, September. So usually the CASPA application opens in either late April or early May. And if you can, and you feel like your application is complete, it's pristine, and you feel you want to submit it and it's perfect, then definitely submit it as soon as you can. But if you feel that it's not ready, it's better to make sure you wait a little bit longer to make sure your application is perfect. But definitely what I did the second time I applied is that I submitted it earlier. The first time I applied, I didn't submit it until almost end of September or mid-September, so that was already considered late, because some PA schools start reviewing the applications early, like in May, and they'll start offering interviews very soon. Also, some PA schools, usually what they do is that once they start receiving applications, they start looking at them and they start accepting students. And then there's other PA schools that just have a deadline, and once they have that deadline, they'll look at all the applications the same. So that's why it's really important, and it's better to submit your application earlier. That way you can get a head start and they can start looking at your application, and you have a higher chance of getting accepted into PA programs. Another thing it's really important that you do is that the first time I applied to PA school, I applied to 9 schools. And I didn't research the schools as much as I should have, as you can tell. So the second year I applied and made sure I applied to a lot more schools. I applied to 15 schools, and I also researched the schools I applied to. So if they had certain prerequisites that they required that I did not have, I made sure I did not apply to those PA schools. If they required a certain amount of healthcare or patient care experience hours that I did not have, then I made sure I did not apply to those PA schools. So it's really important to research the programs that you are applying to before you submit your application, because you'll save also a lot of money, because sometimes there'll be PA schools that, of course, when you're submitting your application, it's already expensive, because CASPA will usually charge you between $60 to $100 per application to schools, and then on top of that you have to submit a secondary application, which is usually sometimes an extra $25, $50, or even $100 for the secondary application. So it's already about $200 per program. So that's why it's really important that you research the program. You don't want to waste, for example, $200 on a program that rejected you like the next day, which happened to me, because you did not have the prerequisites that they needed, or the certain amount of patient care experience or healthcare experience hours that they required. So it'll help you save money also. So make sure you research your schools. And also, if you can, and if you have the budget, try to apply to as many schools as you can in your budget allows you to, because the more PA schools you apply to, the higher chance you have of getting accepted into PA school. Being that with every year PA schools are getting just more and more and more competitive, it's also really important to apply, if you can, to as many PA schools that you want. Also, another thing that I did was definitely my interviews. My interview skills were not very good the first time I applied to PA school. I'm already a very shy individual, I'm a very quiet individual, and I get very nervous easily. Also, being punctual is really important. The first time I applied, I was not punctual at all for one of my interviews, which caused me to be rejected literally like within a week, which is totally understandable. It's really important that you are very punctual to your PA school interviews. Also, being able to practice your interview over and over again, whether it's in the mirror, whether it's with a friend, whether it's with a family member, you want to make sure you practice over and over again. Looking for those frequently asked questions like, why do you want to become a PA? Tell me about your patient care experience, your healthcare experience hours. You want to make sure that you prepare yourself as much as you can for your PA school interviews. I was not as prepared the first time I applied to PA school. This may have also been another thing of why I was rejected by so many schools and why I did not get accepted the first time I applied to PA school. The second time I applied, I already knew how interviews worked since I had gone through the interviews, and I felt like I was better prepared, which I think allowed me to be accepted into PA school. Alright guys, so these are the things that I did which may have been the reasons why I did not get accepted into PA school the first time I applied, and what I changed the second time I applied, which helped me be accepted into PA school and to receive multiple interviews when applying to PA school. So just overall, what I did is that, of course, I reapplied. I reapplied to more PA schools in comparison to the first year when I applied. In addition, I make sure I applied earlier. So applying earlier is the key to getting accepted, and also making sure that your CASPA application is pristine, making sure that you don't have any errors. If you can, look over it over and over again. If you can, if you have a family member or someone, a professor, let them look over it to make sure that there is no errors on any of it, whether it's your patient care experience hours, whether it's your healthcare experience hours, your volunteer hours. You want to make sure everything is precise, and also in the description you want to make sure everything is accurate. Also, another thing is that you want to make sure that you have strong letters of recommendation. Choose individuals that are very, very close to you, individuals that can speak highly of you, that know about your work ethic, your school, etc. That way they can write on your behalf. And this is really, really important, is to have strong letters of recommendation. Another thing is making sure that you research the schools that you apply to, because PA schools tend to vary on what they require and the requirements, whether it is their prerequisites that they require. Also, usually their expiration dates for prerequisites. So if you've taken a class like 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 4 years ago, it's really important to make sure that it does not expire. So this is another thing that I also looked when applying to PA schools. You want to make sure that your GPA is enough for the PA school you're applying to, your GRE score. If it's not, then make sure you retake it and you get a higher score. Or if you just do not have a score, make sure that you apply to PA schools that do not require the GRE score. Also, patient care experience hours, making sure that you have as much patient care experience hours as you can. And also interviewing skills. So make sure that you practice as much as you can those interviewing skills. Make sure you practice those commonly asked questions that you're definitely going to be asked, like, what do you want to become a PA? Tell me about this grade that you got. Be able to explain a bad grade and not make excuses, but to be honest of why you got that bad grade. Be ready to talk about your healthcare experience hours, your patient care experience hours, etc. So also your interviewing skills. So these are the things that I changed the second time I applied to PA school. So hopefully this video was helpful for you guys. If you guys have any questions or any comments or anything like that, make sure you comment below. And if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, okay? Alright, thanks for watching my videos, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.